FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
That's not to say that our work is complete. In addition to our NATO responsibilities, we will work with the international community to provide assistance to the people of Libya who need food for the hungry and medical care for the wounded. We will safeguard the more than $33 billion that was frozen from the Gaddafi regime so that it's available to rebuild Libya. After all, the money doesn't belong to Gaddafi or to us. It belongs to the Libyan people, and we'll make sure they receive it.
I'm just not so sure that Team America World Police, like the South Park 2 or something, is what we should be doing over in Libya. Now, the president's speech last night, I told you I was looking for a timeline. I was looking for an identification of who these rebels are. I was looking for clarification of ground forces, so much more. And, of course, we immediately wanted to get the perspective of Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. You cannot miss his American Heroes in Special Operations. It's at olivernorth.com. And his War Stories, which airs on Fox, DVDs are available at foxnews.com/war stories. And Lieutenant Colonel North joins me on the phone now. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for joining me.
Quite an evening last night.
Oh my goodness! I was, I went in with I went in with at least sort of high hopes, hoping at least that he would say, "Look, here's our timeline." But he didn't give us one. Well, he didn't really give us any information. I don't think in this speech. I think we're all just as confused as we were prior to it.
Well, I would tell you that he did give us some information. He identified what I consider to be a major cognitive disconnect in his thinking.
Ooh.
Because he refers at least 10 times in the speech, and I've read it through twice. I watched it live, and I was making notes as we did it. He refers to American leadership, our role as a leader, our unique position in the world, at least 10 times. And then he says, we're going to hand off leadership to our partners or to NATO or to the UN at least a half a dozen times, and refers to the Congress of the United States, which does have a constitutional responsibility to commit war, only once. And, of course, understandably, there are people in both sides of the aisle, up in our nation's capital, who have identified this cognitive disconnect because the imperial president cannot get away with simply dropping bombs on people and calling it a kinetic humanitarian event.
Right. And he can't say that he wants Gaddafi to leave, that everyone thinks he should go. Oh, but we don't want to have anything to do with regime change. We want to do this, I believe he said, in a non-military way.
Yes, using other instruments of power, meaning obviously sanctions, and maybe allowing the Italians to cut some deal where he can go live in Niger or somewhere like that. But the sad fact of what this president has done is this president has decided he alone will be the one who will make the commitment of American military personnel, resources, assets, and, Lord knows, dollars, and decide who it is that's worthy of American assistance. So, for example, as you and I are speaking, it's dark in Syria, and there are tens of thousands of people on the street. And, of course, we don't have the kinds of footage we got from Egypt when all of that was going on in Cairo, but it's almost identical. But those people just aren't worthy of American support, even though dozens of them are being gunned down by the Syrian army.
Right. And I wanted to ask you, too, see, it's been kind of, I've been developing this opinion thinking that perhaps the president doesn't want to challenge Syria. I know Secretary of State Clinton said that Assad was a reformer, although he shoots his people in the street and everything else. He says he's stepping down. But I've always wondered if the reason why this administration didn't want to do anything about Iran or didn't want to do anything about Syria is because they actually are fearful of those regimes, and they know that the Arab League won't back them because these regimes have things to do with Hezbollah and Hamas and all the rest.
Well, and of course, if you're opposed to Israel, you must be a good Arab. I mean, that's been the basic theme of this administration since they came into town. I mean, Israel is the one that's going to have to make all the concessions. Hezbollah and Hamas really aren't the big threats. The Iranian nuclear program is not a big threat, and Israel has to step back. And of course, if there's a change, if you consider what's happened in the Middle East since, and Mr. Obama went through some of the history of it, his dates were a little off, but he did nothing about Tunisia until Ben Ali was on the airplane getting ready to flee Tunisia. He dithered and dathered back and forth about what to do about Mubarak, because Mubarak was critical at one point to American presence in that part of the world. We had training facilities out there. We had intelligence collection capabilities, and, of course, no small degree of help dealing with al-Qaeda. And they couldn't quite figure out what to do, spoke with many different voices about whether Mubarak had to go or not. He's gone.
Right.
And now what you see happening in Libya is the interests of the European powers, particularly France, which has concession rights to at least a third of the oil in Libya, has essentially taken over the leadership of what's going on, notwithstanding the fact that at some point, still undefined, NATO will take over handling the, quote, no-fly zone against a country that doesn't even have an air force, and support for the rebels, which Mrs. Clinton acknowledged today. We really don't know them. We're just getting to know them.
Right.
May well include numbers of people who are part of Hamas, part of al-Qaeda, part of Hezbollah, may well have influence from Tehran in the midst of it, just getting to know them. And you got to wonder, how open-ended is this? He says it's going to be of short duration, limited scope and duration. Well, the last time I just saw the report came out of the Pentagon here about 10 minutes ago, total number of sorties flown over the course of the last 24 hours, 1,103 by the U.S., and by our partners, 699.
Wow.
Strike sorties flown by our partners, 428, flown by the United States, and those would be U.S. Marines and Navy and Air Force guys, 422.
Unbelievable. A lot of people are saying that Libya is now Obama's Iraq. Do you think that we're looking at something that committed?
Well, he said, he used Iraq as a bad example, so he better hope it's not.
Wow.
The reality of it is there's no clearly defined objective. In military planning, the first thing that's determined is what's the objective. And then you build an operations plan to support that. You attract allies and support that you need to accomplish that mission, and then you go off and do it. And all of those military plans have been thrown out. This whole process of strategic planning has been thrown out the window in this. And he gets up and justifies what he's done because he's got the UN and our, quote, international partners and NATO behind it, and uses as bad examples the U.S. involvement, failure to engage ourselves until there was a large death toll in what was once Yugoslavia, and Iraq. He uses them as the two bad examples, waiting too long or going in before you knew what was going on. We know nothing about what the outcome is to be, and unless I missed something, Dana, I have no idea what the objective here is.
Exactly, especially since we are apparently aiding and fighting with individuals whom we're fighting against in Afghanistan.
May well be.
That just makes absolutely no sense to me with all of this. Well, we appreciate your perspective on this, and while I have you on the phone, we would love to have you as a regular, Lieutenant Colonel. Well,
I would love to be able to do that, but as you know, Fox tells me to pack up my kit and go and fly off to some part of the world, and so to the extent I can, I will, but Lord knows where I'll be the day after tomorrow. I know I'm going to be here tomorrow because I don't have a plane ticket yet. And
goodness.
You need to make them 24 hours out, so I think I'll be around tomorrow, but I could easily be back in Afghanistan.
Right, you're needed in many places. We appreciate your service to our country and your continued service to this discourse, everything that's happening. Make sure you check out Lieutenant Colonel North's American Heroes in Special Operations. It's available at olivernorth.com. And The War Stories. This is a fantastic series. DVDs are available at foxnews.com/war stories. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Keep spreading the good word. Appreciate it, Dana.
Okay, thank you very much.